Arturo, a millionaire well known in business circles, was completely the opposite of what one would expect from a man of his fortune. There were no ostentatious displays, no luxury cars or shiny watches adorning his wrists. He was a discreet man who preferred silence and simplicity. Every day at 12:30 in the afternoon, his car quietly passed through the bustling streets of the city, and he parked a few blocks away from a small restaurant. It was such a common and modest place that many of his friends would never believe a man like Arturo would spend so much time there. The restaurant was cozy with slightly worn wooden walls, antique wooden tables, and the aroma of homemade food filling the air. Arturo enjoyed that place. He felt at home there, away from business meetings, responsibilities, and judging gazes. In that environment, he was not the millionaire Arturo. He was simply another customer. He always sat at the same table near the window. From there he observed the flow of people. Casual conversations, spontaneous laughter, the reunions of friends and families dining together. Arturo liked watching those simple moments. To him, true wealth lay there in the little things. That was why he frequented that place, even though he could have lunched at any luxury restaurant in the city. The restaurant staff already knew him, but they knew little about him. Arturo remained politely reserved. He placed his order courteously, usually opting for the dish of the day, and then sat there, savoring the tranquility. The soft clatter of cutlery, the gentle background music, and the everyday interactions of other customers felt like a pause in his hectic, commitment-filled life. Over time, Arturo noticed that the restaurant had hired a new waitress. She was young, perhaps in her 20s, with dark hair pulled back into a hurried ponytail. She seemed a bit unsure of herself, occasionally stumbling with the orders, but always wore a genuine smile on her face. He discreetly watched her, noticing her dedication to trying her best, even if she didn't always succeed. Arturo understood what it was like to start from the bottom, the effort it took to do something well, and this sparked his empathy. He was a man accustomed to testing people. In his business dealings, he relied fully on honesty and integrity. Perhaps that was why, despite being a millionaire, he chose to live a simple life and surround himself with authentic individuals. And that restaurant, with its modest atmosphere, represented a refuge where people seemed more genuine, far from the interests and masks he so often encountered in the business world. But something about that young waitress caught his attention in a special way. It wasn't just how she served the tables, but how she interacted with the customers, with a shy, almost nervous smile, yet always sincere. Arturo felt a growing curiosity to know her better, to understand who this person was that unknowingly brought a sense of familiarity to his day. Time went by, and Arturo continued his routine. He would sit, place his order, and watch the waitress from afar. He didn't yet know it, but something significant was about to happen in that restaurant. Something that would completely change the course of his life, and the life of the young waitress he silently admired. One day, when the atmosphere of the restaurant felt particularly calm, Arturo made a decision. He wasn't sure exactly why, but he felt the need to test the character of that young waitress. Perhaps deep down it was more than just a test. Maybe he was seeking something deeper, something he couldn't even explain to himself at that moment. So, he discreetly left his wallet on the table, near his plate, before standing up to pay his bill at the counter. That day, when Arturo entered the restaurant, the atmosphere felt different. There was a certain nervousness in the air, and he quickly realized the reason. A new waitress was circulating among the tables, visibly inexperienced, with somewhat hurried steps and furtive glances at the customers, as if she were trying to avoid making mistakes. He later discovered her name was Kora. Kora had started working at the restaurant just a week earlier. Her posture revealed that she was learning, adjusting to the hustle and bustle of daily life. She held the tray with exaggerated care, as if any sudden movement might cause everything to fall apart. Her white uniform was immaculate, but there was something unsure about her movements, as if she were constantly questioning whether she was doing everything right. Arturo, seated at his usual table, observed the young woman with quiet curiosity. He had the watchful gaze of someone who had seen a lot in life, but what caught his attention wasn't Kora's lack of experience. It was something most people might not notice, her genuine dedication. Even with her stumbles, Kora smiled sincerely at each customer. With every order she took and every dish she delivered, she made a point to look into people's eyes. striving to offer the best service possible. Arturo noticed how hard she worked to learn, apologizing when she dropped a utensil or delivered something incorrectly, but never allowing her insecurity to prevent her from continuing to try. On that specific day, she approached Arturo's table for the first time. Nervous, with her pen trembling slightly in her hands, she asked what he would like to order. Arturo responded calmly, choosing his usual dish, but couldn't help but notice the spark of determination in the waitress's eyes. It was as if she were trying to prove something, perhaps to herself, that she was capable of excelling in her job, even though she was just starting out. As she delivered the order, Kora fumbled slightly with the glasses of water, nearly spilling one of them, but she quickly composed herself, smiling with a faint blush on her cheeks. Arturo smiled back, not in a condescending way, but as someone who understands the effort and anxiety of a first job. He had been in that place before many years ago, when he was also young and inexperienced. Now, as a successful man, he recognized the value of effort, persistence, and the desire to grow, qualities he deeply admired in people. While enjoying his meal, Arturo continued to observe Kora in silence. He noticed how, despite her small mistakes, she remained steadfast, determined to improve. Every time a customer called her, she responded promptly, even when anxiety seemed to take over. It was as if, amid all the chaos, there was a silent strength guiding her steps. Over the weeks, Arturo began to notice more about Kora. There was something about her that reminded him of his own journey, how he also started with small steps, making mistakes but never giving up. He saw something rare in her, a sincerity in her actions, a genuine desire to learn. This made him want to know more about her, to understand her story, and to discover if that spark in her eyes was merely the result of initial nervousness, or if there was something deeper behind all her dedication. Little did he know that Kora carried a past that would surprise him in ways he could never have imagined. She was not just a young, inexperienced woman in her first job. Her past hid secrets that would soon come to light, connecting their lives in unexpected ways. And it was this curiosity, this desire to understand who Kora really was, that led Arturo to do what he would do on their next encounter. A simple action, a test that he thought would merely gauge the character of the young waitress, but which would ultimately change the course of their lives entirely. The honesty test. One day, Arturo sat in the restaurant where he lunched almost daily. The atmosphere was calm, with the murmur of conversations in the background and the smell of home-cooked food in the air. He was already known there and was always warmly attended by Kora, the young waitress. However, that day would be different. Arturo, who valued honesty above all, had planned a small test. After finishing his meal, he discreetly took out his wallet. It was a simple black leather piece, but filled with a substantial amount of cash and various credit cards. With a calm heart but a curious mind, he deliberately left it on the table next to the napkin. He then got up and walked toward the exit, watching from a distance what would happen next. Kora, who was cleaning the nearby tables, quickly noticed the wallet left there. She looked around for the customer, but Arturo had already left. Without a second thought, she picked up the wallet, clearly intending to return it to its owner. Her action made Arturo feel a mix of relief and admiration. However, what happened next took everyone by surprise. The surprising discovery. Kora, ever attentive, went to the kitchen to ask the manager if anyone had reported a lost wallet. As she walked, she opened the object to see if she could find any identification for the owner. Upon opening the wallet, however, something unexpected happened. Among the cards and cash, she found a small photo, carefully folded. When her eyes fixed on the image, her heart raced. The photo was of a little girl. Kora felt a wave of shock course through her body as she looked at the child's face. What made her stop completely was the strange familiarity of that smile. The girl in the photo had the same sweet, innocent eyes that Kora remembered from her younger sister, who had disappeared many years ago. She felt as if time had stopped. That small portrait, seemingly insignificant, brought back a whirlwind of emotions and memories that Kora had tried to suppress for so long. For a moment, Kora stood there motionless, staring at the photo. She knew she needed to find out more. Whose wallet was this? Who carried the image of her sister, or at least a girl who resembled her so closely? All of this seemed unbelievable, but Kora felt a spark of hope reignite within her. something she hadn't felt since her sister had vanished. Kora's hidden past. Kora stood completely still, her hands gripping the wallet as if the small object weighed tons. Her gaze was fixed on that photo, a simple and slightly worn photograph, but one that had the power to transport her back in time. In that moment, it was as if the present and the past were merging, and she could hear the distant sounds of her childhood, the light laughter of Klara running in the yard, the wind rustling through the trees, and the sun shining as they played together. The girl in the photo was unmistakable. The big brown eyes, the smile that seemed to light up the room, the curly hair dancing in the wind. Kora had no doubt. It was Klara, her younger sister, who had disappeared when she was only 5 years old, leaving a permanent scar on her soul and on their parents. The last time Kora saw Klara was on a quiet afternoon when they had gone for a walk near the family's country house. Then, in the blink of an eye, Klara had vanished. Kora vividly remembered the desperation of that afternoon, the endless searches, and the cries of their parents calling Klara's name through the nearby woods. The following days were torturous, police coming and going, neighbors and friends helping with the search, and with each sunset, the hope of finding her dwindled. Kora carried the overwhelming guilt of not having protected her sister that day. If only she had paid more attention, if only she had held her hand a little tighter, perhaps none of this would have happened. She remembered her parents' words trying to console her, saying it wasn't her fault, but deep down, Kora always blamed herself. Years passed, and although the family never forgot, they learned to live with the pain. Kora, however, could never completely leave the past behind. Klara was always on her mind, in trivial moments and in dreams. Sometimes she wondered what had happened to her sister. Was she alive somewhere? Was she happy? The mystery was a burden that Kora always carried, but over time, she had learned to move forward, even with the lingering pain in her chest. Now, that pain returned with full force upon seeing Klara's photo inside that wallet. How did it end up there? Who was the owner of this wallet? Kora's mind felt like a storm of questions, all swirling with no answers. Her eyes remained fixated on the image, and the world around her faded away, leaving only her and the mystery of her sister. But deep down, Kora knew she had to stay calm. She couldn't let herself be swept away by emotion at that moment. She was at work in a busy restaurant, and the last thing she wanted was to cause a scene. She closed her eyes for a moment and took a deep breath, trying to organize the chaotic thoughts in her mind. Returning the wallet was the first step. Even though everything inside her screamed to run out and confront whoever owned that item, she knew she had to act with caution. The man who left the wallet could be the key to solving the mystery of Klara's disappearance. But Kora needed answers, not more questions. With trembling hands, she closed the wallet. That simple act seemed to carry immense meaning, as if she were holding a secret she could barely bear. That small object, which had once seemed so insignificant, now represented something much greater. The chance to finally understand what happened to her sister. Kora carefully rose from the table. Her legs felt slightly wobbly, but she kept her head held high as she walked toward the counter. Each step felt more difficult than the last, as if the ground were pulling away from her. Her heart raced, but she forced herself to remain calm. She needed to think clearly. Upon reaching the counter, Kora did what she had to do. "Excuse me," she said, her voice firmer than she expected. "This wallet was left by a customer. I think he left without realizing." She handed the item to the restaurant manager, who took it without even imagining the whirlwind of emotions within her. On the outside, Kora appeared just as always. Calm, controlled, professional. But inside, she was about to explode with anxiety and curiosity. She knew that somehow this moment would change the course of her life. There was something much bigger happening here. Something she needed to unravel. Who was that man? She asked herself again while watching the manager place the wallet behind the counter. How did he get the photo of Klara? And more importantly, what did this mean for her and her family's future? Kora didn't have all the answers at that moment, but she knew that from now on her quest for Klara, which had been dormant for so long, was about to begin anew. And this time she wouldn't rest until she had all the answers. The connection between the millionaire and Kora's past. Kora handed the wallet to the manager, trying to maintain her composure, but the weight of that photo seemed to linger in her hands, as if it were glued to her skin. She took a few steps back, ready to return to her post and deal with the whirlwind of emotions bubbling in her chest. However, before she could move away, the manager, still puzzled about what to do with the item, called the customer who had left the wallet. "Mr. Arturo! Mr. Arturo!" The manager waved, catching the attention of a man who was exiting through the door. He was tall, well-dressed, with an elegant demeanor that betrayed his prestigious position. His gray hair and strong facial features showed the experience of someone who had lived a lot, but his eyes, despite being firm, conveyed a certain melancholy, a shadow of hidden sadness. Arturo turned upon hearing his name and, with firm steps, returned to the counter to retrieve the forgotten wallet. As the manager explained that one of the employees had found it, Arturo reached out to take the item. It was at that moment that his eyes met Kora's. Until then, Kora had been trying to be discreet, but could not completely hide the mix of emotions on her face. Something in her expression caught Arturo's attention. He furrowed his brow, curious and concerned, before taking the wallet. "Are you all right, miss?" he asked in a deep but gentle voice. For a second, Kora didn't know how to respond. The urge to tell him everything about the photo burned within her, but her rational side held her back. What if it was a misunderstanding? What if that child wasn't Klara? The questions kept flooding her mind, but before she could rein it in, she blurted out, almost without thinking, "The photo, inside the wallet. The girl. Who is she?" Arturo looked visibly surprised. He hadn't expected that question. His eyes shifted, and the shadow of sadness that Kora had perceived earlier seemed to deepen. "Why do you ask?" He carefully opened the wallet, pulling out the photo that had become the center of Kora's world. He looked at the small portrait, and a deep sigh escaped his lips. "This is my daughter," Arturo began, his voice a little lower, filled with emotion. "I adopted her many years ago after finding her alone, lost." He paused for a moment, as if choosing his words very carefully, each one heavy with meaning. Kora's heart raced. "Lost?" she repeated, incredulous. She could feel her breath quickening, and the ground seemed to pull away from her feet. Arturo continued, unaware of Kora's agitation. "Yes," he said. "She was very small when I found her. She was alone in a park with no one around. I waited for hours hoping someone would show up looking for her, but no one came. I took her to the authorities, but there were no records. Nothing. So my wife and I decided to adopt her." Arturo held the photo tenderly, as if that image was a precious link between him and his daughter. "She brought so much joy to our lives." As Arturo spoke, Kora could hardly believe what she was hearing. Everything made sense. Klara had disappeared when she was 5 years old, exactly the same age as the girl described by Arturo. The feeling was overwhelming. Her heart, which had been heavy with sadness, now thumped with both hope and fear. "And what is her name?" Kora asked, her voice wavering. "What is her name?" The answer was crucial. This could confirm or shatter her suspicions. Arturo looked at her with curiosity, as if sensing that there was more behind that question. "Her name is Isabella," he said, a gentle smile gracing his lips as he pronounced the name he clearly loved. "We named her that after we adopted her." She didn't remember her real name, or at least never said anything about it. Kora felt a mix of relief and despair upon hearing the name. It wasn't Klara. But did that mean anything? What if Klara simply didn't remember her own name after all this time? Or was she using another name to forget her past? Arturo was now watching Kora closely, noticing the confusion and shock etched on her face. "Why are you asking this? Do you know her?" Kora took a deep breath. It was time to share. Her body trembled slightly as she organized the words in her mind, trying not to let the desperation she felt show. "The girl in the photo. She looks so much like my younger sister. Klara disappeared when she was 5. We searched for her for years, but we never found her. And now seeing this photo, she is identical." The air around them seemed to freeze for a moment. Arturo fell silent, processing what Kora had just said. The revelation took him by surprise. His eyes, once filled with sadness, were now wide, and he stared at Kora as if trying to piece together an impossible puzzle. "Klara," he repeated, almost in a whisper. This can't be a coincidence." The silence between them seemed to scream. They were both filled with questions, But now the situation had become much more complex. Arturo looked at the photo once more, now with a new perspective, trying to see beyond what he had known as truth. Kora, for her part, felt a mixture of hope and dread. Could it be true? Could Klara really be alive, living a completely different life, adopted by a family that never knew of the desperate search for her? Arturo, still in shock, gently grasped Kora's arm. "I think we need to talk," he said seriously. "We need to uncover the truth." Kora nodded. Everything was about to change. She had spent years with that emptiness in her heart, without answers, and now, on a completely ordinary day, life was giving her an unexpected chance to understand what really happened to her sister. The two left together, ready to unravel the mysteries that the past had brought back to the surface. The truth revealed. After the explosive revelation in the restaurant, Kora and Arturo found a quiet corner, away from the noise and bustle around them. The atmosphere was thick with tension and anticipation. Kora was lost in thought while Arturo, still in shock, tried to process the enormity of the situation. The world seemed to have contracted, focusing solely on the possibility that Klara, his missing sister, could be the same girl Arturo had taken in years ago. "Do you really believe Klara is Isabella?" Kora asked, her voice trembling with a mix of hope and anxiety. Her heart raced, and her mind raced in different directions. The thought that her sister might be alive and well, even if adopted by another family, filled her with an emotion she had never felt before. It was as if a veil had been lifted, revealing a world she had thought lost. Arturo, looking into Kora's eyes, saw the pain and hope intertwined in her gaze. "I don't know. But we have to find out," he replied, his voice steady despite the emotion on the surface. He had always believed that honesty and truth were fundamental, not just in business but in life. And now this principle was guiding him in a new direction, one that could change their lives forever. "Let's investigate," Kora suggested, a spark of determination lighting up her face. "If Klara is really with you, we need to know what happened, how she ended up in your care. We need to understand the whole story." Arturo nodded, his expression now serious. "I found her alone in a park, but I don't know anything about her life before that. The only thing I know is that she looked so scared, so lost. My wife and I adopted her because we believed she needed a home, but we never knew what happened to her family." With every word that left his lips, Kora felt her heart fill with hope. Memories of her childhood when Klara was her best friend flooded back, more vivid than ever. She remembered how they used to play in the yard, how Klara always followed her around, eager to imitate her in everything. The bond they shared was unbreakable, and now it seemed that the pieces of that complex puzzle were starting to come together. "We can try to look for records, anything that might give us clues about what really happened," Kora said, determination growing within her. "If Klara was found lost, there must be some documentation. Maybe we can find out who took her and why." Arturo nodded. "That's a good idea. The first step would be to check with social services, the authorities that took care of her after her rescue. They might have information that can help us understand how she got lost, and how she ended up with me." Kora felt a mix of adrenaline and nervousness at the thought of what lay ahead. The idea that the search for Klara was turning into a quest for the truth propelled her forward. It was a path she was more than willing to take. "I'll make some calls," she said, grabbing her phone and starting to look for the necessary numbers. Meanwhile, Arturo thought about everything he had experienced in the past few years. Isabella's arrival in his life had been a blessing, but now, upon hearing about Kora's sister, he felt as if he had a new responsibility on his shoulders. It was more than a test of honesty. He was now connecting to a past he never knew existed. The idea that he could help reunite two parts of the same story deeply moved him. "You can't imagine what this means to me," Kora said, her voice laden with emotion. "For years, all I wanted was to know what happened to Klara. The pain of not knowing if she was okay, if she was alive. It was unbearable." Arturo, touched by Kora's sincerity, felt that his life had taken an unexpected turn. The honesty he valued was revealing itself as a thread connecting their destinies. He was not only helping Kora find her sister, but also reconnecting with the meaning of family. "Together we can find Klara, no matter what it takes. What matters most now is bringing her back to you." Hours flew by as Kora and Arturo immersed themselves in the search. They called authorities, reached out to children's shelters, and even revisited the park where Arturo had found Isabella. Every lead that emerged became a new fragment of hope. After several hours of research, they finally came across what seemed to be their first solid lead. A report of a missing person made by Clara's family, just a few hours after she was last seen. Kora's heart raced. This was the connection she needed. If the report is true, that means we have a starting point, Kora said, her voice now steadier. We need to visit the family, understand what happened. If the Clara you knew is truly my sister, we have to do this now. Arturo looked into Kora's eyes, sensing the fierce determination radiating from her. He knew this journey could not only bring answers, but also heal wounds that had been open for far too long. Then let's go. Together, we will discover the truth. As they left the restaurant, a sense of purpose enveloped them. Fate had united them in an unexpected way, and now they were ready to face whatever the future held. With every step they took, hope became more palpable. Kora was about to rewrite her story, and she wouldn't do it alone. The reunion with the truth could not only reveal the secrets of the past, but also unite their lives in a way neither of them had ever imagined. And so, with her heart racing and her mind swirling with questions, Kora and Arturo moved forward, in search of answers that could finally lead Kora to find the sister she thought she had lost forever. What had begun as an ordinary day was transforming into a journey that could change everything. The reunion and new beginning. The day of the reunion finally arrived. Anxiety buzzed in the air like an electric current, and Kora felt her heart race with each beat. She had dreamed of this moment for so many years that now, as she prepared, a mix of nervousness and hope dominated her emotions. With each step toward the cafe where Arturo had arranged the meeting, memories of her childhood washed over her. Laughter, play, and the sweet feeling of having a sister by her side. But now Clara was not just a memory. She was a possibility, a new chance. Arturo, for his part, also felt the weight of the situation. He had become a bridge between Kora and her sister, and the weight of that responsibility did not escape his mind. For him, it was not just about reuniting two people. It was about mending broken hearts. There was something magical in the honesty Kora had shown throughout her search, something that deeply inspired him. He was determined to help the two women rebuild their lives and reconnect with the love they had lost. When Kora entered the cafe, her gaze searched for the familiar figure of Clara, and then there she was. The same woman who, in her dreams, always had bright eyes and a warm smile. But now, Clara looked nervous, her fingers toying with the coffee cup in front of her. The moment their eyes met was like a spell. Time stood still. Kora felt a wave of love and longing flood her heart. Each of them held the other's story in their hands, and in that moment life seemed to have a new purpose. Clara, Kora whispered, almost fearing to break the magic of the moment. Clara slowly turned, and an expression of recognition and astonishment crossed her face. The two stood up almost simultaneously, and in an instinctive movement they embraced. The hug was a mixture of tears, laughter, and a profound sense of belonging. Kora felt as if a part of her soul was returning home as Clara enveloped her in a tight embrace that seemed to last an eternity. The cafe around them fell silent, as if the world were honoring that sacred moment. Conversations and the clatter of dishes and cups faded away, and all that remained was the palpable energy of the reunion. When they finally pulled apart, both had tears in their eyes, but there was also a glimmer of hope beginning to blossom between them. I never thought I would find you again, Clara said, her voice trembling as she wiped away a tear that escaped her eye. I thought I had lost you forever. Kora smiled, still absorbing the reality of the encounter. I was so lost without you. But now that we are here, we can rebuild everything together. Arturo, watching the scene, felt a wave of satisfaction. He had been the catalyst for this moment, but he now knew that the real magic lay in the connection between the two sisters. They had the power to transform their lives and face whatever came their way. As the conversation flowed, Kora and Clara began to share their stories. Kora talked about the life she led since losing her sister, the sleepless nights wondering where she was, and the hole that absence left in her heart. Clara, in turn, revealed the challenges she faced, from being adopted by a family that welcomed her but never knew how to fill the gap left by her sister. I always felt like something was missing, like a piece of me that I could never find, Clara confessed, her voice now stronger. Now I know that you are that piece. "You are my family, Kora. And I promise that we will not be separated again," Kora replied, holding Clara's hand tightly. "We will find a way to make this work." Arturo, moved by their sincerity, decided it was time to take action. "I want to help you start over. We can find a place for you to live, a fresh beginning. In time, perhaps we can figure out how to reintegrate your stories, and who knows, recover the bonds that were broken." The two sisters exchanged glances, a mix of surprise and gratitude. Arturo's help was an incredible gesture, something they never expected to receive. "That would be a dream," Clara replied, her face lighting up with a smile. "Just knowing that someone believes in us makes all the difference." The conversation continued to flow, their life stories intertwining like the roots of a tree growing together in search of light. Kora and Clara spoke of unfulfilled dreams, what it meant to be sisters, and how they could support each other on their journeys. Every exchanged word was like a bridge being built between their lives, a solid foundation for the future they were about to construct together. As the sun set outside, painting the sky orange and pink, Kora and Clara began to make plans. They wanted to recover lost time, explore the childhood memories they cherished, and above all, create new stories to tell in a future that now seemed brighter. Arturo watched, his heart warmed by the joy of the two sisters. He knew that their journey would not be easy. There were many challenges ahead. But he also knew that honesty, determination, and love were the keys to overcoming any obstacle. Kora, noticing the daylight fading, said, "Let's meet again tomorrow. We can plan the next steps and kick off this new life we so desire." Clara nodded, a sparkle of determination in her eyes. "I am ready to start all over again. Now, I know that I am not alone." Arturo, feeling like part of this new narrative, smiled. What had started as a simple quest for a sister had transformed into a greater mission, a new opportunity for love and family. He was willing to do whatever it took to support Kora and Clara on their journey. As they left the cafe, the sisters walked side by side, animatedly discussing the future. The bond between them was stronger than ever, and Arturo followed behind, a feeling of satisfaction filling his heart. He knew that together, they could build a new beginning, and that the honesty Kora had shown was only the first step of a journey that promised to be filled with love, discovery, and above all, reunions. The lives of Kora and Clara. Two paths, one family. The new beginning for Kora and Clara was marked by a series of small victories that gradually transformed into significant achievements. Arturo not only provided financial support, but also became a mentor and a friend. With his help, they found a small apartment in a cozy neighborhood, where sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the rooms and warming their souls. Kora, who had always dreamed of becoming an artist, began painting again. The vibrant colors she chose reflected her emotions and experiences, and each brushstroke was a step toward healing the wounds of the past. Clara, in turn, was excited to explore her identity, divided between the two families that had always been part of her life. The new life with Kora added another layer to her story, while her adoptive family still held a special place in her heart. In the first months, the sisters dedicated themselves to getting to know each other. Together, they rediscovered the simple pleasures of life, such as shopping at the local market, cooking together, and spending evenings talking about their hopes and dreams. The connection between them grew stronger each day, and the pain of separation seemed to be finally fading away. Clara frequently visited her adoptive family. Her parents were kind and understanding people, always welcoming her with warm hugs and smiles. However, Clara felt an internal conflict. While she was with them, there was a space in her heart reserved for Kora, and the idea of dividing her time between the two families left her a bit confused. "How can I be completely happy if I leave a part of myself behind?" she often wondered. Life in both households required a delicate balance. On weekends, Clara alternated between spending time with Kora and her adoptive parents. During these visits, she shared her new discoveries and joyful moments she experienced with her sister. Her adoptive parents, in turn, were receptive and interested in learning more about Clara's life with Kora. "This is amazing, dear. We're so happy you found your sister," they would say, trying to support her in this new phase. On the other hand, Kora also struggled to understand Clara's place in her life. Although she wished her sister could be with her all the time, Kora knew that Clara needed that space. So she encouraged Clara to be honest about her feelings, and not to feel guilty about dividing her time. Family is about love, not about how many hours we spend together, Kora would say, always reminding her of the importance of keeping the bond with their adoptive parents. Clara's first birthday after their reunion was a significant moment. Kora decided to organize a celebration that would bring both families together. With Arturo's help, they transformed the small apartment into a festive space decorated with balloons and streamers. When the big day arrived, Clara was nervous but also excited to share this special moment. When both families gathered, the energy was charged with anticipation. At first, Clara felt butterflies in her stomach, but soon joy filled the air. They laughed, shared stories, and celebrated life and the new bond that had formed between them. Clara's adoptive parents were surprised and moved to meet Kora, and soon the affection among everyone became palpable. Time passed and Kora and Clara's lives continued to intertwine. Together they started a small crafting business, where Kora created unique pieces, and Clara handled the sales. This project not only strengthened their bond, but also became a source of income that helped sustain them. However, challenges did not disappear. Clara still struggled with her identity and the need to feel a sense of belonging. Visits to her adoptive family, although filled with love, also brought forth the sadness of knowing there was a part of her story that still needed to be understood. One day, while talking with Kora about these feelings, Clara vented, "Sometimes I feel like I'm living in two different worlds. It's as if I have to choose between two families I love." Kora, listening intently, replied, "You don't need to choose, Clara. Love is expansive. Our lives are intertwined now, and we can create a new family that includes all of us. Let's find a way to celebrate this together." With this new perspective, Clara began planning a gathering that would unite both families again, but this time in a way that would allow everyone to get to know each other better. She wanted the union to solidify, not just as two separate parts but as a complete whole. When the day of the new gathering arrived, Clara was radiant. The chosen venue was a beautiful park, filled with trees and flowers, where they could enjoy a picnic together. The atmosphere was filled with laughter and delicious food, and everyone made an effort to get to know each other better. Amid conversations and games, Clara realized that although the families were different, the love they shared was what truly mattered. Clara's heart swelled with joy as she saw how well everyone got along. As she observed the interactions, she realized that the connection between the two sides of her life was stronger than she had imagined. Kora, witnessing Clara's transformation, felt a wave of gratitude. The life they were building together was filled with love, acceptance, and new possibilities. They were not just sisters united by blood, but also friends and partners on a journey of self-discovery. The road ahead would still present challenges, but Kora and Clara were determined to face them together, strengthened by the love they had found in each other and by the support of their families. Life was a beautiful tapestry woven by moments, and they were eager to create new chapters in this exciting story, knowing that each one would be a new opportunity for growth and happiness. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming stories. If you enjoyed Kora and Clara's journey and want to follow more inspiring narratives about love, reunions, and overcoming challenges, give us a thumbs up and hit the bell icon so you won't miss any updates. Share in the comments how you connected with the story and what your favorite moment was. Together, let's build a community where every story matters.